Let's say you want to produce a film, but you've never produced a film before. Can you raise the funds or pull the right people together to make it happen? In this exclusive members episode, Jaclyn talks with Jill Bugbee about the executive producer, creative producer, logistics and finance, getting the most out of your budget, and more.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Jeffrey and Jaclyn Witt.
Welcome to the members-only portion of the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. I am with Jill Bugbee today. My name is Jaclyn, and I have a confession to make. My husband and I have actually, we have been talking about getting into producing. But like the kind of producing that I want to do is more so that I want to write something amazing and then I want to hire people to do it. Like, because I know at least at this point, I'm not ready to direct. I don't know how to do it. I've only been on set on occasion with my son because he was doing background acting. So I know I'm not anywhere near ready to actually pursue that part of it. But I know the right people that I could put together a really good team. This is what I'm thinking. So can you explain to me, like, okay, here's what you need to know, Jaclyn, if you want to do that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a producer now of about 20 years, but my producing experience is more on the corporate commercial side. And we did so far helm one feature film. So that's pretty much the extent of my producing. We've done over, 750 productions at this point in terms of the smaller scale productions like commercials, all that stuff. But anyway, there's a difference with executive producing and regular producing. And the regular producing is still even broken up in different sections too. But with executive producing, that would be the title for you guys. They are the vision holders. You know, they're the ones that really see out on a ship. You are the ones out on the top of the mast and you say, I want to go that way. The regular producers are the ones that are driving the ship. And if they don't drive the ship, it's not going to move forward. But the executive producers are the ones on the mast saying, that's where we're going. That's where we're going. That's where we're going. So really, that's the distinction between the two. Particularly, executive producers also are the ones that have more of the burden to raise the funding. They have more contacts and connections, or even putting the seed money. You know, the seed money is the development money that actually pushes the project forward, you know, that little gas in that ship, so to speak, right? That pushes it forward out in the sea in the first place. So that's really the distinction. Now, I function as executive producer and producer. The actual producer can be broken down pretty much in three different areas. There is the creative producer, there's the logistics producer, and then there's also the finance producer. So the finance producer can also try to raise other funding. And the finance producer is more the ones that try to make sure that that project gets film financing, which is called debt financing, advance money that you get from a financial firm that will advance the money for the tax credit, for instance. Whether it's, for example, 30% in Atlanta, they will advance 30% of your budget ahead of time, so that you can actually have 30%. And also that same company can also finance what's called a pre-sale. So the pre-sale is what distributors have estimated what your project can earn as far as money in different territories around the world. So that's a pre-sale when they can also advance that. That's the finance producer that will get that done. You know, also having to complete what's called a completion bond. Basically, it's like an insurance that your film's going to be completed no matter what. That way your investors have a peace of mind. You're like, oh, okay, it's going to get completed. And now the creative producer is the one that's involved with the story. The executive producer can also be a writer, but the creative producer can also be the writer or the story developer. So they're the ones that make sure that this film is in the right genre. You know, it's not in too many genres, because that could be confusing when marketing is finally upon us, right? So what we usually recommend to people is you pick two genres. You have like a main genre, if it's faith-based, for instance, and second genre is romance, or second genre is adventure, or second genre is coming of age, you know? But you can't be having faith-based and coming of age, and then all of a sudden it's horror. Two main ones, because the creative producer will be able to then do more of the breaking down of the script. You know, that's the one that they have to make sure that it has a final audience. And then the third part in all of the producers is called a logistics producer. And that's the one that actually hires all the crew and makes sure that we hire all the casting director, for example, that gets all the cast together. Basically, all the scheduling, all that stuff. That could also be a line producer, which is the one that really budgets the film, and this is what is needed for this role, and this is what's needed for this crew member. So yeah, like 3 different types of producers. They could also be executive producers, but the main distinction really is the vision holder and then the ones that actually can drive the ship.
That's really good to know, because I've had ideas for certain people that I would love to work with on certain projects where I'm like, okay, I think this person would be great to work with me on this because of this reason. And sometimes it does have to do with money, not necessarily like where I would be depending on them to, get the money, but more like I can see that they are really good stewards of the budgets that they work in.
Right.
And so if I know I've written the script to be a lower budget and I know that, okay, I can get a certain amount, but if I can't get this higher amount, I want to work with somebody that's a good steward of the budget that they're given, because it's better to have somebody that can make, a movie that looks like it was made on a larger budget.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And most independent films are anyway. I mean, very, very few films are even on the higher budgets. Even with those quote unquote independent films that are higher budget, there's still an involvement of the studio somehow, that there's still an involvement of the Lionsgate, for instance. They're called more like the mini majors, So yeah, it's still in our experience in a portion of the film where everybody knows that 95% of budgets get stuck on stage 1, which is the packaging, the funding, right? But once that's taken care of, the ship is moving. So
Yeah. It does feel overwhelming. Like I think when we first met and, you were explaining all of how to make a movie. And for me, I was like, okay, they do definitely make it seem like this is a possibility. It never occurred to me before that it could be something that I could wrap my head around. So that helped to demystify the process.
Right.
So it was really good for that. But then I also realized at the time, like, I'm so not ready for that though. But it showed me that you guys did know what you were doing, right?
After falling flat on our faces in the beginning.
Yes. But you're honest about that, right? Like that's one of the things that I love, when I'm talking with people and they're willing to talk about like, okay, so this is what I did wrong, but this is what I learned about it.
Yes.
There's something that's kind of, it's relatable, right?
Yeah.
Like I can connect with that because I didn't do everything right the first time I tried something new.
Yes. Nobody does though, but then not everybody's willing to talk about it, right? I mean, the Lord is, of course, above all honest, right? So we should also be very honest and transparent, especially if it has the fruit of letting somebody see and then they're like, okay, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do it this way, right? Because it's helping everybody gain, wisdom from your failures anyway. Kind of like turning your failures into a win somehow if you share with people, I think. Because you're like, okay, then if I help somebody save years and money doing it this way instead, it's much better.
Yeah. So what's in store for you and Eric now?
Well, for now, I mean, besides really getting your film off the ground, that is more of an ambitious one because, like I said, we have a higher budget for that, but we're going for the best for now. And after that, we're also developing other stories. Not so much in script writing. Like we love story development. We're more the ones from a producer's perspective. We can see like, okay, this is needed in the market, right? So we kind of like to identify more like the stories that could work. And then we also love doing the structures of films, and then the character development, all the things that are involved in story development. But as far as script writing, Eric is more a script writer. I'm not a screenwriter. But I love story development. So yeah, we are developing quite a bit of projects as well. But our first priority is definitely to get Solitary off the ground. That's Solitary Refinement. That's the complete title, off the ground, because I think after that, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to also, once we crack the code, so to speak, in funding, and then we would be able to fund other projects, not just ours, but other people's.
That sounds fantastic.
So we're really doing a lot of networking in Atlanta, attending, film markets and festivals. And so it's really a matter of who you know. I'm trying to see who you want to work with because strategic partners are important. Partnerships are important in filmmaking, right? Especially on the producing side of things. We're super happy. We've already secured at least 2 financing people that will put up the tax incentives and the pre-sale. So it's a matter of really trying to get the cast right, like that name, recognizable name. And then after that, we should be able to get the rest of the funding.
Yeah. Collecting the ducks.
Yeah.
Lining them up.
It is. And there's also that catch-22 sometimes, like, I need this one first. But then again, it's like the chicken before the egg. Does the chicken
Yeah.
come before the egg, or the egg comes before the chicken?
Yeah.
But it's just being faithful, faithful with little things, and the Lord will make you faithful with much. So I believe that's been like the story of our lives. He tests you with faithfulness. Are you going to be faithful with one movie or one song or one book, one student like Jaclyn, like one story? God will always test you on that one at first, right? And then he'll be like, okay, then you're ready to be faithful with many and with much, the parable of the talents that Jesus talked about, right? That's always like at the forefront of our hearts and minds. It's kind of like, well, okay, if we're faithful with one, you will make us faithful with many,
Yeah. And, I think the fact that you guys didn't give up, when you were producing Heroes of Dirt, like
Yeah.
you said, you were under budget. I mean, you didn't budget correctly. It took you like 7 years. You were having kids, like so much life happened. You didn't pay yourselves, like so many things that you would do differently this time around.
Yes.
But you still did it,
Yeah.
like you finished.
Yeah. And not just finished, but that's why when we finally made it on the list of 75 movies to watch that year with Vulture.com and New York Magazine, with all like these big titles like Star Wars, Force Awakens, we felt like we didn't really deserve to be there on that list. But the fact that like we worked so hard and actually, sacrificed a lot for the sake of like, okay, we just have to finish because it's a matter of faithfulness, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was amazing because that list opened up doors for us like nothing, because we could prove that, oh yeah, we do have what it takes to be on that list, So,
Yeah. And you did it without a known name or a known
yes,
face. Like,
I know.
and so did you understand before you got, casting and filming and all of that? Did you know that that's something you should have done?
No. Mm-mm.
When did you find out? When in the process did you find out you should have had that?
After the film was done. Yeah.
Oh, no.
If it was under budgeted, then you can't afford like the bigger and recognizable names, right? Unless you know them personally or, somebody that knows them. But it's also a movie that was, like I said before, in extreme sports. So we had to also stay authentic to that world. And so we really hired a lot of the X Games champions of BMX freestyle. So we had to really kind of maintain that authenticity. But then again, I think in hindsight, we could have added, some of the other roles that are more recognizable, right? To get a little bit more international weight in terms of selling it out there. So yeah, we found out after.
Yeah. Like you have gotten distribution, so that's fantastic. But it probably would have happened faster and, easier had you had that known face.
Yes, even one.
But you don't realize it when you're watching the movie. You don't think to yourself like, I don't know any of these people.
Right.
I think part of it maybe for me, because like I don't necessarily know the world of BMX. And so for me, I kind of felt like, oh, I'm watching this other world anyways. And so
Exactly.
yeah, I wasn't expecting that I should have anything familiar happen. But I do need to say that it does not look like a low budget movie. Like all the stunts and everything like that, it was all so well done. And even the police chase, like that's
3.5 million, I think is what people were thinking now.
Yeah. Like, because I mean, for a police chase, that's not something that you think you're going to have in a low budget movie. That's one of the things as a writer, I know, keep that out of there. Like if I want to keep the budget down, get rid of anything like that.
Right. And then that also comes with being resourceful, because the Lord has gifted me in terms of outreach. So when I outreach to the city, it's like, hey, this is a little movie, but then again, these are the benefits of this movie from the city. So they also gave all the police cars and all that stuff all for free for us. So
oh, wow.
Yes, they even allowed us to bulldoze a public park for all of the X Games champ.
The jumps and stuff?
Yeah, because we also said like, hey, we're going to get ESPN out here to cover it. So it had a little bit more of a win-win for the city. So it was marketing the city as well. So they love that because, there's notoriety for the city. There's this going on. So, they just gave it all to us for free. So if you filmmakers out there have something that will potentially benefit a city or a county or something like that, and if you have a spin towards that, then it's good for you to contact them and say, hey, this is to benefit our city. That way you can get free resources like that. So from that to restaurants to businesses as well. If you need, for example, like we needed a lot of fencing, they just gave it to us and we did thank yous and all that stuff. So you could get a lot of things off your budget, kind of like offset by really just outreaching to your community, business community. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think I was speaking with another producer at one point, and he was saying sometimes it's easier to work in the smaller towns because they're more excited about, being part
Yes.
of this project.
Right. Like, for example, in Atlanta, it's become now the filming hub of the world with so many sound stages popping up left and right. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's bigger now in the footprint of sound stages behind California. So now California first, and then us, and then New York. So we just surpassed New York, but it's a lot. But I think it will surpass Los Angeles soon because the tax incentives here are much, much better, like 30%. And you only
Mhm.
need a minimum of 500,000 to start to actually take advantage of it. And so, yeah,
Okay.
like it's really taking advantage of the city councils, the business community, really trying to see like, hey, what can I do for you to market you? And then, what can you do for our film to help us out? So, yeah, there's a lot of creative ways to get the budget
Mhm.
out.
Yeah. What is something else that you learned in the process of making Heroes of Dirt that you would do differently in the future?
Yeah. So aside from budgeting correctly, so that's number one. And
Mhm.
aside from actually putting in a recognizable name, at least even one, because everybody does it, right? When there's a movie, everybody's like, oh, what's it about and who's in it? All right. Those are the two
Mhm.
top questions. What's it about?
Mhm.
Who's in it? Same thing in international markets when you're trying to sell your movie. What's it about? Who's in it? What's it about? Who's in it? So if you
Mhm.
don't have the who's in it, it's not going to sell as well. So those are the top two. Budgeting correctly, at least getting a name, a recognizable name in there. And then third, I think is besides all the perseverance, it's just really not giving up. You know? No matter how many obstacles you face, it's kind of like, well, you just have to keep plowing through, especially if after a lot of prayer that you really feel that God is calling you to this. You just have to, get a lot of prayer covering. I think that's one of the things that is really needed is a prayer covering from trustworthy friends, intercessors. That's one thing that Eric and I have learned over the years that is super, super important, is prayer. Not just us praying, but other people, trustworthy people praying behind you because, we battle not with flesh and blood,
Mhm.
powers, principalities, wickedness in high places. But, you know, this is a call of God on our lives. And I'm sure it is also on you. And so there's going to be a lot of resistance, right? Because anything that would prevent us from walking into our destiny that God has planned for us is going to be there all the time. We all, as brothers and sisters in the Lord, our main thing, all of us really is to be more Christ-like, right? In terms of our character, our life, our walk inside and out. That's our identity in Christ. But there's an assignment that
Mhm.
is part of it. That is our positional. There's an operational identity in Christ where we have an assignment from the Lord that we're going to accomplish on earth. So whether you're put in this field or other fields, I think there's always going to be resistance. So yeah, prayer. Prayer is important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually, as you're talking, it's kind of I started relating so many things to screenwriting now. I've learned a lot from screenwriting. I'm writing a book. Okay. So
Yeah.
so what you just said is kind of like the same as when you're writing a movie, I've got my character, but my character is going to be built and have their character arc through
Yes.
the process of pursuing something.
Correct.
So as we pursue the assignment that God gave us, we're
Yes.
expected to grow in that process. That's part of how we're going to be stretched
Yes.
and
And it hurts.
tested. And yes, sometimes it really does. But then
Yes.
it can be so exciting too, like when you take that leap of faith and you do what you know that God is calling you to do, and
Uh,
then God does his thing and you're like, "Oh, we did that." I mean, it doesn't come without a lot of effort. Like God's not saying, "Here, do this. This will be easy." No. He's like, "Do this because it will bring me glory," which means that it's going to be difficult for us.
yes.
But he
Exactly.
already has the plan. But he's not going to waste anything. He wants to develop our character through the process of it.
Absolutely. Being more Christ-like is really like our main goal. But then again, there's an
Mhm.
assignment that he has given to each and every one of us because he all created us, but he also has amazing, amazing, amazing big plans for us, right?
Mhm. Yeah, beyond anything we can imagine. And
Mhm.
cuz that's the thing. Same with my characters when I'm writing a movie, my character, my hero has no idea what he's capable of until after I've brought him through the journey.
Yes.
Then he can actually meet that test at the end and
Yeah.
overcome.
Yeah.
But it's the same with us. We have no idea what we're capable of until
Mhm.
God brings us through the journey and reveals that to us, where we're like, whoa, I did not know that I was going to be in this position or that
Yeah.
I was going to be able to do this.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, even with Jesus' disciples, I mean, They started as fishermen, right? That's the A world. And then the B world is like a completely like, oh my goodness,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a fisher of men now. I'm going to change the world now. So it's an amazing type of storytelling. And I mean, it really is that. And people are built for story, right? The Lord has always created people to be built in story, whether they know God or not. So in terms of storytelling, powerful storytelling, the ones that really make an impact in people, especially the ones that advance God's kingdom, whether it's really blatantly Christian or not, it could be inspirational, it could just be family, but kingdom values, having kingdom values in the movie. It will lead people to really have deeper questions and conversations with people. And that's the start, whether it's a seed or watering a seed in them in the gospel, right? So I believe that, yeah, filmmaking is really a huge impact maker, influencer, in our culture. It is a culture influencer. So it's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for everything that you're doing to, do filmmaking for the kingdom of heaven. And thank you for being with us and sharing all of your experiences and wonderful insight. It's been a joy.
Awesome. It's been amazing being here.
All right. God bless.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.